got to tell me something other than regulation, because that doesn't even exist in regards to hampering. They will work with you. Regulation is there, and it's very clear cut. But the red tape, we are not, shall I say, in a red tape mode. We're so everything starts with vision. So we had the vision. We then had to build the strategy.
Thank you so much for tuning into Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. I'm your host, Christian D. Evans. This next guest is the Chief Investment Officer at Lamar Holding, which is based out of Saudi Arabia. Works very closely with the royal family as well as some very high net worth, ultra high net worth individuals over there. But they work on really establishing external investing strategies as well as internal investing strategies from the West, and really making that bridge from the West to the East and having that conversation, that dialogue, and seeing the amazing opportunities in Saudi Arabia outside of just the quote unquote oil that it's known for. There's so many other different things that are going to be on the forefront, and we're going to be talking a lot about this. He's actually a graduate from the George Washington University in accounting and finance. He's the entrepreneurship and accounting strong profession, and I am so excited about having him on. Please welcome the Chief Investment Officer at Lamar Holding, the one and only Luay Ahmadi. How are you doing today, Luay?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you very much for that intro. Very humbling, but thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for taking this time as well, and thank you for inviting me to this wonderful platform and show, and allowing us to have a discussion and dialogue on, a host of topics, hopefully.
Well, I'm very humbled as well to have you on, definitely representing Lamar Holding and having one of the CIOs, one of the main individuals that really focus on the investment thesis. We're going to be diving into a lot of that investment thesis, the way you think about this. But one of the things I really wanted to hit straight on and forward is really that Saudi Arabia. We talked offline. There's a lot of opportunities, investments just outside of the oil. I know it's very well known for the oil, and that's kind of what it's branded by. But I love to get your perspective, really just giving our audience some really update on the opportunities that are presented, and obviously the people that you're already working, institutional endowments, you're already working and seeing a lot of infused capital from the West, from the U.S., infusing into Saudi Arabia, because we're seeing that. So I'd love to just kind of start there, and let's go from there. Luay?
Sure. So, the West, or predominantly the U.S., has always been a substantial investor here, especially with the oil being discovered and shall we say, and really being mass produced out in the 60s. But, so we've seen, over time, the conglomerates, Halliburton, Schlumberger, on the oil perspective. And then when the large market perspective came in, you saw huge pharmaceuticals, Abbott come in and dominate the region. But it was predominantly, it was always these mega names or mega conglomerates that came into the region. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions about the region, but let me put things in perspective for you. The Saudi Arabia, and shall we say the GCC or the Gulf, is the wealthiest region in the world, and with wealth comes growth. So many have not actually ever visited the region, and many have a misconception that just because we speak Arabic, we're exactly the same as neighboring countries. So I've actually sat in meetings where people have come to me and said, we'd love to come to Saudi Arabia, but we've done our due diligence, on Syria, and we just can't come for A, B, and C. Well, to put things in perspective, if you're going to do that comparative analysis, it's like me saying I'm looking at a real estate transaction in Palm Springs, but I've done due diligence on the homeless factor in California, and they just just doesn't mesh. We speak Arabic, yes, but other than that, we are individual countries with our own geographies, our own ecosystems, our own natural resources. So with wealth as well comes growth, like I said previously. So we started as oil producing, but over the decades, we've taken our money. Initially, we started investing that money internationally because that's where the growth potential was. But now we've we've come in and say, okay, we need to invest the money in our own countries. And what is the result of that? Since we started these programs, shall I say, in the early 90s, we have countries with substantially advanced technology, infrastructure, medical industries, and the objective of the GCC, shall I say, is now to become completely self-sufficient. So being self-sufficient means opening up to the West to come in and develop these industries with us, not for us, with us. And what does that mean? That means we want to make our own, we want to have our own healthcare industry. We want to be localized in manufacturing. I've sat in New York and with some very high profile investment bankers, and they literally think that when I fly back, I'm going to get onto my camel from the airport and go back to my tent now. And I laugh about it. They've literally asked me, how we live there with the heat, and how we manage our tents and camels, and it surprises me the lack of knowledge and the lack of, shall I say, interest in actually coming and looking at what wealth does for a region. So when you take that into perspective, you can Google Doha, Qatar, or Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, or Dubai, UAE, and just look at the pictures and imagine what goes hand in hand with that. Imagine the technology associated with that. Imagine the infrastructure that goes with that. Imagine the youth that has been educated with that. So with all of that, the governments here have phenomenal programs that actually enhance and welcome foreign direct investment, which is where we see now a huge opportunity that's not only theoretical, it's actually being delivered. The growth, GDP in Saudi Arabia last year, where most of the world saw declining numbers and rapid inflation, we were at 8.6% GDP growth, and there's only more to come. And everything for the next 10 years has already been set out in exactly where we're going to put our money and how we're going to do it. And if you want, you're more than welcome to come and join us on this wonderful, shall I say, ride. So that's pretty much in a nutshell.
Well, I appreciate you bringing this up, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation and have you on. Why? Because there are a lot of misconceptions. I love that, where they're going to get off the plane, get on your camel, and go to your tent. And the reality is that is all just misconception, and there's a lot of innovation going on. Now, I want to loop back around. You guys have a ton of wealth, and you guys established that wealth in regards to the oil. However, what I love about how you guys thought about this is the evolution of where you're going to deploy and infuse that capital. You mentioned a few: construction, healthcare, tech, all these different kind of verticals. And I'm curious, when you were looking at deploying it, did you deploy, building the foundation of construction first, and then kind of the evolution into healthcare and the evolution into tech? Or was it kind of all infusing all verticals all at the same time? And, obviously co-investing with the West, the U.S. and some, other individuals over here in regards to institutional. How did you guys navigate that? I know that's been an evolution, and it still is an evolution, obviously. And we're going to be diving into the ESG and the impact investing, investment thesis as well. But I want to talk about those specific kind of verticals in regards to navigation within the last, 10, 15 years.
Just to clarify on the question, are we talking about at the macro level, or are you talking about on an individual basis? If I'm clear, because they're two different
as a nation. Yeah, as a nation in general, you guys took your wealth, your oil, and then infused the capital into really establishing the construction, healthcare, and tech. Yeah. So I was just curious, did you guys focus on one vertical first and building that? Or did you guys focus on all three or four of those industries, all four of those verticals, all at the same time? How did you guys navigate that process in the Saudi Arabia it is now and future Saudi Arabia?
So let's be honest here. Pre-oil, the region was pretty much sand. That's it. One big sandbox, massive. It was very, shall I say, segmented. And if we go back to geography, population mainly stood around or was developed around pockets of water. Since that time till now, of course, when you've had, one of the most important commodities globally and explosive demand for it, money was taken to develop mainly infrastructure. So infrastructure was always a substantial, big play. Now, sorry, due to ethical values and the way things went, that every brand you can imagine has been developed, and that was predominantly what the region wanted to give to its people. Secondly, and I'm talking to you about the 80s here. So then education played an important role. Now, okay, we've got the oil, we've got the money, but we can't be dependent on the development of the sector completely on importing that know-how. So education, the education sector, this is, again, maybe something that varies between us and the West. Top-notch education is free and available to the entire population. And I'm not just talking about high school or elementary. We go on to higher education and masters and PhD. The government completely supports you to get that. And the education sector as well has advanced substantially. So that was going on into the 80s and 90s. Now, if we go on and these are, shall I say, brick and mortar aspects or industries or verticals which we're very used to. But when you go down and then take tech for a space, now the region has been delayed in regarding to the tech bubble by about 10 years. And you might say, oh, that's really bad. And it actually wasn't, because when the region started concentrating on technology and realized the importance of things, we used the West as, I don't want to say a guinea pig, but shall I say as a test market for a lot of technology before we went ahead and implemented it. So advancing from high-grade technology into healthcare or into oil and gas, or even when you go down to smaller apps, like Uber didn't come to the region till 10 years after. And what did that allow? It allowed for a lot of technology to be developed, taking into consideration the mishaps and the teething process, and finally developing and presenting to the table an app that has no quirks in it, that is completely there. So when you've seen incubation in a technology, you take any of them, they start off small and then they learn and then they come back and they perfect their product and then they go again and market segmentation. And then, after like 6 years, you've really come out with the proper, shall I say, offering. So we sat back and we waited till that perfect offering was there, and then we launched it. And the same thing goes with quick commerce, goes with fintech, goes with insurtech, goes with basic things like delivery services, paid rides, all of this stuff. So by the time it's launched here, all the quirks are out. So I don't know if that addresses your question, but we grew, shall I say, as a region, in regards to first to bring up the population up to par, and now that we have our, shall I say, basic necessities and requirements from food delivery, from food sustainability, from healthcare, from education, from infrastructure, we're now deploying the money into taking us to the next level. So we're now building brand new cities, and like Neom, we are introducing best of market technology into the countries, and that's where we see the growth. So we're brand new cities. We're not cities that have been built 500, 600 years ago. We are, everything you see around you has built very fast in the last 50 years. So everything around you is brand new. There's no shall I say, legacy there. Everything was put in place to properly provide a population with what's needed for the next 100 years, built 50 years ago.
Well, you bring up some really solid points, and I'm so glad we went down this because, again, it's that evolution. And as I was doing my research prior to this conversation, understanding Saudi Arabia and the trajectory, and you guys have a compound year-over-year growth in a lot of these industries and making leaps and bounds. And you mentioned something that was very valuable. You're kind of using the West and other nations as kind of a guinea pig, and I think that's very logical in the way you guys look at that and analyze that data, because there's that feedback loop, and then you say, okay, well, this is what we're going to do, and this is what we're not going to do. This is what we're going to avoid from obviously failures over what we have done. And so I think that's really a cool approach. That's why I'm so glad we went down this way. But before we dive into this, I think is really cool how you really focus on building the infrastructure, the education, the healthcare, and the technology side of things, these different verticals, and really establishing those platforms, making leaps and bounds. So let me ask you this, okay? You mentioned some really good things where, hey, when you're analyzing the tech, and let's just stay on tech for a little while, that vertical specifically. I'm curious, when you're looking at like tech and healthcare, okay, overall, maybe building, creating, sustaining, creating almost like that Silicon Valley synergistic kind of just amazing PayPal mafia kind of structure, if you will, where you've just got incredible high level CEOs in the tech sector. With that being said, what do you feel like you guys have learned from the U.S. that you guys like, and what you guys have learned that you don't care for? And I'm specifically talking about tech and healthcare, right? I think there are certain things that we did correctly. There are certain things that we didn't navigate correctly. And I think obviously you guys can learn from that. And that's why I think it's kind of cool. And so from here, looking at it, what are you guys doing that you guys are going to, duplicate? And what are you guys are going to do that's not duplicating it because you feel like, another path is better, more innovative in you guys' approach and culture in Saudi Arabia? How do you look at that, Luay?
Let me address the medical industry first. So, telemedicine is for example, a huge drive here right now. Everyone's looking for the solution for telemedicine, and the reasons behind that. It's because we have a scattered medical capability throughout the country, and linking all of this has become post-COVID a very important aspect. And there are many drivers there and many government-led initiatives to enhance medtech or even telemedicine, how you say it. So again, medicine was introduced in its conventional form. You went to the hospital, you saw a doctor, he prescribed something to you, you went home, and then people were held at home, with COVID, and they couldn't actually reach a hospital. And the U.S. has tried so many models to try to find that gap. We've seen the Veteran Society try to introduce a couple of things out there, and there's a learning and teething process until that happened. And finally, there was a complete solution, which we saw in the West, which we really like. You can just sit behind like you have a Zoom call, press a button, see your doctor, and he can prescribe you what you want. It's sent directly to the pharmacy. It's picked up from there, and delivered to your house. Solution done. But how long did it take for you to get to that model? How much money was put into trying to find that process to bring it to the T? So again, it's not that we look at the West. It's just we will wait for the teething process to go and then fine tune it for the region. Another real life example is Uber. They didn't want to touch the region. They didn't understand the region. There's various factors there culturally that are probably different for Uber, laws, regulations, aspects like that. So an entity called Kareem came in there and did the whole 9 yards, tweaked the Uber model to meet the rules and regulation in regards to share ride. And then finally, when they perfected it, Uber came in and bought them out. So there's two sides to the equation. You want to take the risk and take a foreign model, tweak it and work it and do it, and then cash in for the happy days once you've made it attractive enough for a foreign buyer to come in? Or do you take a model that's, a lot of money and time and has been pumped into it, and then finally you take the final version and you apply it here? Another example is quick commerce. Quick commerce, as you know, there have been so many models. First, it was delivery of food, and then you opened up dark stores, and then there was a cloud kitchen model going on, and then you combine the cloud kitchen into dark stores, and voila, you had the ultimate solution. Guess when the region decided to adopt the dark store cloud kitchen model is after it was perfected. So that's mainly on some of the tech, but the opportunity again in the region is very, very, shall I say, you're in virgin territory here, because if someone takes the time to take a shall I say successful model and comes here and understands the ecosystem and the culture and does the tweaks, it's literally someone sitting in 1986 and buying a share of or 1990 and buying a share of Apple at that time. It's like you foresee the future. So what we see in the region, for example, a lot of startups come to us after they failed at the Valley. they come and try to raise money here. There's enough money in the valley for startups. There's enough venture funds and startup funds out there. So when zero startups from day one come over here trying to raise for their seed round or Series A, it always brings up a question: why are you here? Why have you reached all the way to the Middle East when you got enough money in the valley? You got 300 plus million people. Why are you over here? What failed that you didn't develop your technology enough that you're suffering to raise money? So it's always a litmus test. It's a catch-22. If you come over to the region and you have been unsuccessful where you are, why? And it makes you wonder. Why is this guy sitting here in front of me? But again, the real opportunity is to take a successful model, find a plug into the ecosystem by fine-tuning it to the needs and requirements of the region. With quick commerce, for example, simple ice, is a very popular sales product for when people are ordering it. And you never think that while you're, in the US, you're like, ice, I'll open my fridge and I'll have it there. But, these fine-tuning ticks are there. But once you actually do find, when you have the model done and it's running well and everything's been worked out, the amount of money and, shall I say, demand for these products is overwhelming. Because barriers to entry, or shall I say, the competitive landscape is not as aggressive as the West. So you don't have 20 companies opening up at once. You have one company come in, you have to capitalize it well, shall I say, at seed round, and then you eliminate many of the barriers which a lot of startups see. Because as soon as you have a new idea in the West, you've got 20 copycats over there. We wait for all the copycats to die out and one real leader come out there, and then we speak to them and bring them. So we've always done a very good job.
Well, you bring up some really solid points in regards to kind of when someone, fails in regards to raising capital in the, valley and they come over here, you have to ask yourself why, but how you navigate that as well. And like you mentioned, there's such massive, untapped market over there that it becomes a natural evolution for a lot of these startups or a lot of these individuals or a lot of these companies to come in and maximize and build an incredible defensible moat around this because of that integration. I want to ask you this also, in the U.S. in each state, depending upon where your company is, headquartered at, there is a lot of regulation, right? And whether it's a good or bad thing, there's obviously red tape. And sometimes you have to find that right, serendipitous line or the right balance for building and sustaining things, but also having the right security. Like I understand in the medical world, there's an FDA process approval. It may take 7, 8, 10 years before that FDA approval gets processed. Same thing with patent technology. And there's a lot of red tape. So it can be a good and can be a bad thing as well. But again, there's always this balance between government and entrepreneurship and innovation and sometimes how it stagnates it. I'm curious over in Saudi Arabia, how do you see that partnership in regards to obviously private enterprise and as well as the government kind of synergistic relationship to make sure that it doesn't stagnate innovation, but obviously it is able to really infuse a lot of energy around entrepreneurship and innovation.
So once again, we go to misconception. A lot of people. The Arab world is a big place, and the Middle East is even bigger. And a lot of people have tried to follow, shall I say, base their investments based on population. So we are not the largest. Saudi Arabia is not the largest populated country in the Middle East by far. However, if you're a startup, you always follow the numbers, right? So Saudi Arabia is actually one of the most business-friendly regions you can ever work with. They have a clear mandate by 2030 to attract $1 trillion in FDI, which is foreign direct investment. Now, in order for them to do that, they're completely 100% aware that the ecosystem, the structure, the regulation has to be so friendly that the ease of doing business it's non-bureaucratic, no hard restrictions from regulation. Everything is mapped out. To the extent Saudi Arabia has a ministry. It's called the Ministry of Investment. And I tell you, it is a I don't think you've ever seen anything like this in the West. Is actually you ask for a meeting, you're given a meeting within 24 to 48 hours. You're assigned an entire team from the Ministry of Investment to you to listen to all your issues, and an entire team is assigned to you with specific KPIs, how to solve any issues which you may have. So when you come in and you say, I applied for this and I didn't get it, and then they ask you, how long has it taken? 1 week. What? 1 week? So they put someone on, to make sure what the issues are, what the quirks are, why isn't your life, as easy as pie in regards to investing in Saudi Arabia. That is the main purpose of the Ministry of Investment, to make life easy for foreign direct investment. There's so many things that come with it. So many programs. Now that's just the shall I say the tip of the iceberg. What has Ministry of Investment done? It's developed a program. So if you're in manufacturing, for example, and you decide you want to move to Saudi Arabia to, I don't know, let's use a real life example, manufacture solar panels. The Ministry of Investment will come and initiate all the programs that you're eligible for. One of them, for example, is a 95% loan from the government towards to the facility that you're manufacturing or to your business. That's paid over 20 years at a non-profit rate, which means come in and build here for free. Did you know what I mean? And it's called the Sharik program or the partnership program. If you have a problem where your numbers are not, matching because of a competitive landscape, they'll work on a solution to subsidize certain parts of your cost so that you can, shall I say, surpass the startup period for 3 or 4 years until you become cash flow positive. All the government initiatives have, if you actually show your commitment and move to Saudi Arabia and set up there. See, what Saudi doesn't want is that people to bring ideas, but manage the entire operation out of their office in Chicago. They need boots on the ground. They want to ensure that whatever is being developed or launched, or whether it's from a startup or from a construction, is that the teams that are responsible for achieving an A game is actually in Saudi Arabia overlooking this project. So their demands are simple. Come to the region. How much are you willing to invest? You want to put $100 million in this project in Saudi? Great, we'll match it. Here's $100 million. I'll match it for you. But these are my conditions. You have your people here. You have your headquarters here. Do you know what I mean? For this venture, and develop it to the T, and you can leave. It's not like you have to stay there forever. But if I'm showing you so much commitment that I will make your life easy, I'm business friendly. I will sort out any regulatory issues you have. Oh, you have a problem with cash? Here you go. Oh my God, you have a problem with attaining financing for this project? Here you go. I'll support that as well. Oh, you didn't find enough investors at your seed or Series A? Sure, I'll support you as well. I'm still not understanding, Chris. What else do people need? If this isn't business friendly, what is? So it's all there. We are not, and again, I go back regrettably. We are not. We are the GCC. We are the Gulf. We're where the oil, the oil and gas center of I say the world. So we now have the programs and the wealth in place to support the growth from inside the country. We're not looking to expand across our borders or go anywhere else. We just want to ensure that we maximize, what we can do for the people and for the country. And, and that has resulted in a huge movement. So we are seeing a lot of investments from Europe. We are seeing a lot of people move in from Asia. And even though, shall I say, the US specifically, there's still that thing in the back of their head, that they don't quite get it yet. The only thing I can recommend for anyone, which I've done to a lot of friends and people who I've spoken to in the VC space, is that before you judge a book by its cover, why don't you come in? I take you around for 4 or 5 days, meet the various avenues. There's so many avenues here for investment that can be done. Not only on tech, on the green tech space, on the blue tech space, on sustainability, on green energy. We all know that the entire world is moving towards, greening of the entire energy space. And so guess what? We also decided to pitch in and put a lot of money into it to be developed as and hopefully reach a carbon neutral level. So To answer your question, business friendly, you got to tell me something other than regulation, because that doesn't even exist in regards to hampering. They will work with you. Regulation is there, and it's very clear cut. But the red tape, we are not, shall I say, in a red tape mode. We're so everything starts with vision. So we had the vision. We then had to build the strategy. Then we took time to build the strategy. And now there's only three things left to do: execute, execute, and execute. That's it. That's where we are. That's Saudi Arabia's mode right now. And if you go on and look at any of the programs, not only they're telling you what they want to invest in, they're also telling you how much they want to invest in it. And they'll also tell you how much they will support you and that they will partner up with you. I'm not talking to you as a business community. I'm talking to the government will partner with you directly on the areas and verticals where they want growth. So VC startups already a huge thing which they're trying to attract in me. Yeah.
Well, it's so cool to see, and I'm so glad you reiterated that, because it is so incredible that you guys are playing. There's this really strong partnership between the government as well as the private sector, and anybody that's looking to, really, maximize the upside, innovation, the entrepreneurial kind of Saudi Arabia, synergy you guys have built in there, which is incredible. I want to ask a little bit, because I would imagine there is a reason why Silicon Valley and Miami and New York, there are some hotspots in the U.S. It's not just because of the innovation, but it's also the talent pool that people have access to, obviously software engineers, coders, all that stuff that you may need to be able to build and sustain incredible business. You guys have built, and I want to reiterate this, well, that's why I'm bringing this up. You guys have very, very smart people, because obviously you guys are on the forefront of the impact and ESG, which we're going to be talking about here shortly, and the green side, green investing strategy, and a lot of tech. But I want to just, kind of reiterate a little bit about your access to your talent pool in Saudi Arabia in-house, but also, the relationships and the partnerships that you guys have been able to build for those that are looking to obviously, take advantage of Saudi Arabia, after we just talked about the very strong partnership between the government and the private sector.
Yeah. So again, Saudi Arabia, the majority of the population are the youth. Okay, it is a population mainly based on, or the growth potential completely comes from the youth. So the government and the rulers have done everything in their power and in their capability, not only to offer what they can to the youth, but empower the youth as well and open up as much opportunity as possible. Do we lack, shall I say, the expertise? Yeah, we're not there yet in regards to a couple of the things which you have mentioned, which is why these government initiatives are there for you to actually come to Saudi Arabia. So Saudiization is an important aspect, transfer of technology, not in the form of the way you're thinking of it as a conspiracy, but transfer of technology is that they would love for foreign entities to come in and also train and educate these guys over the next 10, 15 years. Again, part of the self-sustainability model which we want. Again, we are 10, 15 years, behind the curve into the tech world and into the establishing the hotspots which you are. I'm not saying it's not there, but the demand for it farly exceeds what we currently have. And we've identified this and we want to develop it. So programs being launched into universities today, AI technology, the robotics programs that are there, they're there. But it's going to take time for them to actually, this doesn't happen overnight. So government truly has programs that if you come into Saudi and you support the training of the youth into any sector, it is viewed and you get even further support in various programs. And shall I say, which ultimately support bottom line and aspects like that.
So you guys aren't fully established, but it's such a young generation that you're growing into that, which is really cool to hear. So we always on this podcast, we always talk about skating to where the puck is going to be. And we know that obviously you guys are cultivating an incredible ecosystem of young, very innovative, very talented and skilled, population, which is really cool. So I appreciate explaining that. I want to pivot slightly now to Saudi Arabia ESG and impact. And what I find interesting about the ESG world is it's very powerful. It's very innovative. And I love the vision of that North Star of making it, green, right? But also, I think we've got some individuals we've talked to on this podcast where we talk about sometimes where the North Star becomes almost too prevalent with being so green that sometimes we're not actually building a profitable business. We're just throwing money at a problem that's not actually going to be, go to market, et cetera. I want to ask how Lamar Holding, as well as, Saudi Arabia overall and a macro level, coming from oil, right, to now really putting a lot of energy and effort and a lot of exciting projects focused on the ESG, the impact side of things, impact investing, and how you guys think about it, your methodology, the way you're thinking about it, not just now, but 5, 10 years out. What are those projects looking like and the fruition of that?
So, two fronts here. Firstly, a lot of the green energy and the greening is completely supported, or programs which are launched by Aramco. And for those of you who don't know who Aramco is the largest company globally. It is the oil producer of Saudi Arabia. Its value is equivalent to Apple, Facebook, Tesla, all of them put together, times 5. That's the valuation which they recently raised their money for, in the market. Now, the initiative to reach global standards and globalization is a vital aspect of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is no longer a net importer of, shall I say, various aspects. Saudi Arabia is a net exporter today, and also plays a large role at shall I say, the global arena or the stage. To be there, you also have to be very aware of what the entire world wants. It's not just what we want. The entire world wants a more carbon efficient, a more carbon neutral world for future generations. And that early on was completely understood and embraced by Saudi Arabia. It's not like we're saying, no, we're not going to do it. No, okay, we've made a lot of money from carbon emitting oil and gas, and what we're going to do is we're going to do our part and ensure that our country meets global standards. So His Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman went on the global stage, the Paris Accord, and gave various commitments. Number one is such as desulfurization, of the entire processes. Lamar Holding has been very, shall I say, very been capable of actually participating in a bid for Aramco in regards to desulfurizing their oil facilities, and we're currently in the middle of this bid. But it showed us a lot about Aramco's current initiatives and future aspirations in regards to the importance of ensuring that Saudi Arabia is not only an oil and gas exporting country, but also a leader in alternative energy and sustainability and greening. So yes, we're making the refineries and the oil and gas sulfur compliant, but also the amount of money invested in the A to Z solution, from identifying the right technology, logistics, and then exporting green energy, blue ammonia, green ammonia, is mind-boggling. And we're not talking chump change here. We're talking about the hundreds of billions of dollars. So seeing that, okay, all of this resources are going to be built there. Now, this is a very, shall I say, novice industry. There's this technology out there on blue ammonia and green ammonia, but it's not. Is it best of market? Is it practice? Which one do you use? Which one is the one that's going to be there for the next generations? It's still also an educating process, because we've never done it as a mass scale. Neither Saudi Arabia nor has it been done globally. Everyone thinks they've got it, but it hasn't been that you become a net exporter of the green energy. So the programs that are set in place with such definition and guidelines and, really meticulous detail are in place right now, welcoming with open arms, shall I say, any initiatives in regards to the space. And the best case example of putting money where your mouth is, there's a huge, maybe you know, maybe you don't know, there is a new city being developed in Saudi Arabia called Neom. It's a beachfront, whole city. I'm not telling you a city the size of, Rhode Island or anything. I'm telling you something, larger than Los Angeles, shall I say? Okay, that's being developed at a mass scale from scratch, which is completely based on clean energy from A to Z. And it is based on, again, the sustainability and the green energy initiatives of Saudi Arabia. And they want to build it from scratch, from zero infrastructure. It is currently sand, not now, but when the project started, it was sand, beachfront. And today it's being developed into a global model for how a city should be run on clean energy, while introducing incredible, hospitality sector at the same time, mind-boggling, shall I say, natural habitat and aspects like that. So I don't know where to start or where to end trying to explain to you how important and massive the initiative is in Saudi Arabia to become a market leader and role model in regards to clean energy. I know you're saying that, you, at one side you're producing the oil and gas, and at the other side you're linking it, but why not? Oil is still going to be required in gas, and that doesn't mean we can't take the money or financial return from those investments and invest it into something that could be a model for other countries or generations at the same time. We've tested the world is still not ready to move into 100% clean energy yet. Whether it's electric or whether it's green or whether it's blue, we are still dependent, at least for, I would say, 1 or 2 decades on oil and gas. So until we are able to move there, so why not? We know we're moving there, so why not invest in it and ensure that happens at a faster rate?
Yeah, Luay, and I like how you guys are thinking about it because you guys are already bringing in profitable income from the oil, and then you're deploying it into the healthcare, the education, the ESG and the impact side of things. I want to stop here and loop on the ESG thesis a little bit. I know in the VC and the private equity, everybody has their own investment thesis in regards to whenever they're acquiring companies, like holistically, it doesn't matter what industry. And they're obviously looking to sell and get they're maximizing the internal rate of return for their investors so that everybody gets compensated and everybody makes money, right? My question is the ESG timeline and horizon. I'm always intrigued because, some say that, again, they're like you just mentioned, Luay, in which you said we're going to have to rely, on oil and gas until we make that bridge and adaptation and evolution to ESG, and we rely on ESG. But some of the technology in the ESG, some of it's there, some of it's not fully there, right? And we've seen where, okay, hey, we can sustain off of solar panels, for example, some energy, but we can't rely 100% on that yet because there's just a lot of contingencies, a lot of situations. So and I know this is more speculative, but I want to ask you, because you guys are really focusing on this and the ESG and the impact, and obviously you guys have incredible incubator in Saudi Arabia. What do you think in regards to the timeline, and what does that look like in regards to your investment? Because obviously that's a longer time horizon. You're not looking to, turn a dime right now. It's more that, hey, you know what? We're doing it for the North Star of zero carbon, which is really great. So what do you guys at Lamar Holding, as well as yourself, Luay, think about that time horizon and navigating when you are deploying capital into the ESG, community and ESG startups?
So we are an investment firm. So a lot of our ESG investments are based on market demand for ESG investments. So let's put that clear. It's not like we internally have a mandate to convert into an ESG organization, but the demand from the market regionally the opportunities for you to be able to invest in, shall I say, um, real assets which impact your on an ESG basis are extremely limited as the GCC. So yes, we have the drivers to now desulfurize. So desulfurization is one aspect. We also have the carbon element now, and moving away and trying to become a carbon neutral society. But overall, from an ESG perspective, we still lag opportunities to come in and on an investment basis and actually monetize or present cases that allow for a complete investment thesis on an ESG basis. Okay, so I'm just clearing up from an ESG investment and from an ESG time horizon. So we run the government programs here are running so fast that we are trying to catch up with a lot of initiatives that are being there. Saudi Arabia has clearly said at the Paris Accord that they will be sulfur compliant by 2027. 2027 is a 4-year window in regards to desulfurizing the entire oil and gas industry. That's a massive, massive undertaking, but that is what's been put in place, and it will happen one way or other. Now, by 2030, I can tell you 10 aspects that need to kick in line in regards to the carbon capture programs, in regards to decarbonization, into it. So that's also only 7 years away. So we're not really talking about an ESG perspective that's a decade away. These are initiatives that require a lot of work, structuring, financial commitment, expertise, and technology that need to be happen in a 7-year period. That's point number 2. Point number 3, Aramco's programs and initiatives as well have been put in place to attract, to incubate, to invest in, to grow, and to launch carbon neutralizing and sustainability, shall I say, initiatives. So we're attracting FDI. It's not only in the form of money. We're also asking you guys, or asking the world, saying, look, we're here. We have the initiative in place. We have the willingness in place. Come, tell us your ideas in regarding to the ESG space, in regards to anything to do with greening, anything to do with the environment, anything to do with initiatives that make this world a better place, and we will work with you to ensure that they come to fruition. That's from the world's largest oil producing region. That's I think a great extension of and welcoming of arms to tell people, hey, it might not be working in Florida because of your regulation or because it's delayed or something like that, but guess what? We'll hear you out, and if we like it, we'll work with you, we'll incubate it, we'll grow it, and we'll launch it globally. That's a big driver here as well. Come to Saudi, incubate with us. We believe in you. Incubate with us, grow it here with us, and let's launch it internationally and globally with out of Saudi. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's where we are today.
It does. It does. And it's so exciting. That's why I think it's so fun to see, individuals like yourself that have come from oil, but not just focusing and doubling down on oil, but really being able to diversify, right? We hear that, and really taking a lot of that wealth and deploying it, infusing into so many of these verticals. Luay, I really appreciate you being on our podcast and really helping our audience and the West over here, that a majority of our audience listeners, to be able to understand the misconceptions and really kind of, going straight forward and the massive opportunity, the massive innovation, the massive, partnership between the government as well as the private sector in Saudi Arabia, as well as the opportunities that are presented there, and how Lamar Holding is on the point, running point guard basically, right on the front line, making that bridge from the West to the Middle East, to be able to make sure, hey, there is this alignment. And like you mentioned, there's a lot of opportunity. You guys are playing to win. You guys are very aggressive and playing to win as well, and really helping navigate in all these different verticals. And we just mentioned, of course, ESG a little bit, but we've talked about tech, and we've talked about healthcare and med tech and all these different things that are happening. Luay, I really appreciate you being on our podcast. For those that want to reach out to learn a little bit more about what you got going on, maybe they want to reach out and maybe connect and have that conversation with you, and working with Lamar Holding and navigating that in Saudi Arabia, and having an incredible HQ in that area. How do they reach out to you? How do they be part of what you got going on, Luay?
I welcome anybody who can basic verticals of tech. If you want to know more about the region, or how you guys can always reach out to me at L.Ahmadi, at Lamar-Holding.com. And also you can check out our website at lamarholding.com. All my details are there. So please feel free if you want to reach out to us anytime. More than happy. Love working with you. If you can understand more about this.
I love it. I love it. And guys, those links are in the description. Luay, I really appreciate making yourself so available, putting your email. I'll put your email down there. I'll put your website, put your LinkedIn as well. So you guys reach out and get access to understanding what Lamar Holding is doing, as well as the, Chief Investment Officer at Lamar Holding, Luay Ahmadi. Luay, I really appreciate being on here and talking about this. We're going to have you on again, talking about the evolution, because things are happening at such a fast pace in Saudi Arabia, and we'll have to keep, our audience updated as well. Guys, that is the Chief Investment Officer at Lamar Holding in Saudi Arabia, the one and only Luay Ahmadi. Guys, that is Journey with Christian Evans podcast. Be uncommon if you can.